All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Prevention Perk
はい、
uh,
お願いします。で、
discussion
はい。
um, about media literacy. And I'm sure glad to have the audience. Seems like it's growing a little bit each time we do this. I'll continue to let people on as we go along. Um, And I just want to let everybody know that for now we've exhausted the initial schedule that we set out to do with each one of these sessions, and we're putting together another list that we'll pick right back up after the first of the year. But if you do have suggestions on things that we might discuss in the future, feel free to send me an email or just drop it in the chat box here this morning if there's a topic of interest that you think we should try to flesh out a little bit during this. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, basically what we're trying to accomplish with Prevention Perk is just the same thing like meeting a good friend for a cup of coffee. We just we get together, we have a subject that we're going to bring up, today's media literacy, and then I'm going to talk just briefly about a presentation that I did a few years ago, and then I'm going to introduce my co-host for today. And he's going to talk a whole lot more about media literacy, and it's a subject that I just dearly love. I think we should probably do more discussion about media literacy, and maybe that will take root once we start this discussion here. So. I can't think of anything else as far as housekeeping is concerned. I'm just going to share a little bit about this presentation that I did a few years ago with a little background. I spent about 16 years of my life working in media, anywhere from radio to television to marketing and advertising. So I know a little bit enough to be dangerous, but I do know that it's not a myth or a wives' tale that the media is targeting the youth. And I would say that it's probably for their gain and not necessarily for the promotion of good health. Not to be overly critical, I just know that's how the game is played. And I think that Mr. Mitchell will do a good job of fleshing that out in his presentation. But what I talked about a few years ago was something that not only I have a little bit of experience with, but a passion for, and that's how music actually impacts our lives. And so it's been a few years back, I put together a presentation for the state of Missouri's annual prevention conference, and I have dusted it off from time to time. I did it once again last year for the Real Choices, Real Voices conference up at the lake. And it always seems to draw a good audience, and it seems to get good reviews, because the thing that I noticed about music is that everybody resonates with it. Doesn't matter if you like country, if you like pop, if you like rock, if you like jazz, music, if it's a part of your life, it's influencing you in some way. It makes you happy, makes you sad, makes you glad. And that's kind of what I tried to reinforce in the presentation, was just how music has been shown to influence our choices. And I was really surprised. I kind of started out with the idea that, I knew how it had indeed impacted my life. But once I started to kind of do a little bit of research on it, I was really quite surprised to find out that there's quite a bit of it out there, and it points in the direction that music is used to influence behavior, and that's what advertisers know. But music specifically, and the content of music videos, has a direct correlation between the use of substances, and the more we view videos and the more we ingest popular music, especially those that appear to be pro-substance use, the higher likelihood is the audience will engage in more and more. There was an interesting study on college students and their consumption of just watching videos. And one of the studies was, if they watched videos before they went out, they drank considerably more than they did if they didn't watch videos before. And I'm talking music videos, before they went out to a club or to a college event where alcohol was served. So I just find that to be particularly interesting, and it's because of the way that music impacts our brains. And it's with the advent of PET scans, if you're familiar with that imagery for viewing the brain, they've been able to really see how music just really lights up every sphere of the brain, and they're being able to use that in positive ways to help persons that have sight disability, people that have suffered strokes, those kinds of things. And they're starting to learn how music might even help to shape your personality. And so a lot of the music is stuff that I use to talk about how it's impacted my life. And then it's interesting because I try to cover music from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, I try to cover every decade, if you will. And as soon as I start playing a song from whatever decade that was, you can see who was in high school that year. I mean, they get up and they start dancing and they just get the broadest grin on their face. And again, it's to show that once we kind of onboard this, especially during those formative years, it stays with us for the rest of our lives. I remember one time I had heard a song on the radio. Some people won't even know who this band is, but it was April Wine. I hadn't heard the song I Know in 35 years. And that song came on the radio and I sang every single lyric and I was shocked. It was like, how do I remember that? I can't even remember where I put my car keys, and it's just so interesting how it becomes a part of us, and they can use that. Advertisers and marketing positioning and things like that can use that to sell a product. And some of the videos that I show in the presentation, um, I know that the music industry and liquor and tobacco, they work hand in hand, and you can see it in some music videos. Product placement pays good money. Apple will pay to get their computer logo put inside a video, and so will Anheuser-Busch. And so it's just an interesting way to do business, and it does have an impact at the end of the day. And so, a lot of what I talk about is the media literacy behind it, or my understanding as I explain it, is that understanding what really is the message and how do you interpret that message. But more importantly, you can interpret it for like, hey, let's go out and drink. But, you don't necessarily have to act on that, and understanding you don't have to be triggered or motivated by this stimulus, if you will. So we talk a lot about the misinterpretation and what a slippery slope that is, and how media literacy, and that's what we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about, is really coming to understand that it's talking to me, it's targeting me, it's trying to influence me. And what I need to do is find ways to find other outlets for understanding it, processing it, being able to not act upon it, and so forth. And so I spent a little bit of time at the end talking about ways that schools, coalitions, communities can set up groups. And I think that Dana's going to talk a little bit about that through his coalition work, how they can advocate for. I don't think we're going to change the music industry, but we can certainly change the way that it impacts us. And I think that that's significant in and of itself. So I'm really pleased when I put together this list and we reviewed it. I was like, I want to do media literacy, and I was just going to really kind of go through my presentation and really maybe show some of the videos and stuff like that and take up the brunt of the time. But I had seen Dover's Youth to Youth present a couple of different places, and then I watched one of their webinars. And after seeing their webinar on media literacy, I was like, well, I wonder if I could get Dana to come on board and share with me and our audience about media literacy. And he said any other month it might have been difficult, but December he takes time off. So he's in a 2-week window, he told me, where he could fit something like this in, and I'm certainly pleased that he was able to do that. Just by way of a brief introduction, Dana Mitchell does lead the Dover Youth to Youth in Dover, New Hampshire, and that's what I love about the idea of this perk is we can knock down those barriers and the miles that are between us and them. And I don't really want to say this out loud because I know Ricky will be jealous, but Dana said that it's just a blistering snowstorm out there right now. They're just getting hammered. And I know Ricky's like me; she's a big snow person as well, and we're just laying in wait for it. So I'm just glad that you're here, Dana. I'll go ahead and let you take over from here and share with our audience. We'll leave time at the end. We want you to ask your questions and certainly use Dover as a resource going forward if you want to put some media literacy into your coalition work in the communities that you represent. Dana?
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve. And it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. My contact information is up there. And if you see anything that you want to follow up on with your coalition, if you have a group of youth that you work with, feel free to use that contact information. I'll flash it up there again at the end to reach out for copies of anything, or if there's anything I can do to help you out as you move forward with your own prevention activities. Be glad to share that. I'm based in snowy Dover, New Hampshire. I've got 8 inches in the driveway and it's still snowing. So it feels very Christmassy here around here. So they told me not to come into work today. So I can't get to work, but I can talk to you 2,000 miles away. And that is pretty amazing. So really glad to be here with all of you here today. My program's called Dover Youth to Youth. The quick introduction to myself, my background is law enforcement. In 1992, the brand new police chief came to me. I was a captain at the time and said, we're going to do more community work. We're not doing anything on drug prevention in this city. So I want the police department to take the lead on it. And so go do that. And that's sort of where I started, not knowing what I was doing. And we started a coalition. Then we started a youth group built as the youth arm of the coalition, and kind of went forward from there. And at some point when I was ready to retire, they said, well, why don't you just retire and be a civilian, and you can work with the youth and keep the things going that you started. And I'm still here years later, still doing that and working with the youth element of the coalition. And so our group averages 60 to 70 students. We start in 6th grade, and many of them stay right through till senior in high school. I also have, they're organized on 3 different teams by age, and they work on a variety of projects we'll talk about in just a bit. I also have a group of college students that are graduates from our program that stay affiliated, work as a volunteer adult staff, and stay connected with us, and we get a lot of work out of them as well. The group I work with does a variety of advocacy, from policy change, presentations and teaching, media, and community awareness projects and activities and campaigns. So that's the action outputs of those youth. But in order to really understand where media literacy fits into that mix, be helpful for you to understand the nature of our program. So we're a youth empowerment program. There's a lot of terms thrown around in the process of having youth participate in prevention. There's a lot of terminology. So you talk about youth involvement. So just so that we're all on the same wavelength as I use the terminology. So if you have youth that are involved in prevention, that'd be a group of Boy Scouts that are stuffing drug prevention brochures in an envelope that you're going to mail out to parents. They're being helpful. They're volunteers. Real positive thing. But they're involved. The next term you hear a lot is youth engagement. If you have a group of youth that are doing Red Ribbon Week projects, a drug-free school dance, they're organizing some projects, they're engaged and they're committed with the mission and the idea of drug prevention, and there's supportive and positive attitudes surrounding prevention work, but it's not quite youth empowerment in the way that we use the terms. So our program is a youth empowerment program, and people come to us when they are interested in youth empowerment. That's sort of what we do. Youth empowerment is when youth have the capacity to change their environment. So environmental change. you bring youth to the point where they can change the world around them, then they're empowered to cause change. So in our program, that's what we're shooting for. There's nothing wrong with the other levels of participation, but just this is where we come from. So for example, in one of our meetings, youth came in and said, hey, I was just up at the Hilltop Fun Center, which is an arcade and batting cages and kiddie go-karts and that type of thing. And he said, they have a Budweiser car on the kiddie go track and a bunch of kids driving around in it. I said, well, really? So we have a 15-passenger van. We piled into the van and drove up there, and I bought some tickets, and our kids are riding around in the Budweiser car. And sure enough, it says Bud King of Beers on the hood. That's one of my students there, and Budweiser on the fenders. I thought, well, that's kind of a strange thing. We went back to the office, and over the process of 2 or 3 weeks, we kind of discussed it, decided that was really not the right message. So the students prepared a letter to the business, thought through what their arguments were, what their concerns were. They practiced what they would say. They practiced answering questions that the business might ask, sharpened their arguments. Went up there. I drove them up there. I stood back. I didn't even go up to I never even heard the conversation. They went up there, talked to the manager. And later that day, the owner called me and said they'd pulled it off of the track and were replacing the decals and wouldn't be using it anymore. He also said that, it's been there for 10 years and not one parent had ever come to them and expressed any concern about that. So that's an interesting comment, assuming that's true. That's kind of an interesting thought. I suspect it probably is true. And this is what, where media literacy starts to fold in. So we're a youth empowerment program, and the model of youth empowerment that we go by, and then when we provide support and training to other coalitions, this is the model that we present to them. If you want youth to be empowered, they need the knowledge, they need the skills before taking action. And when we talk about knowledge, we're talking about depth of knowledge with whatever topic you're going to take on. And I tell the students that, if you're taking on vaping, you should know more about vaping than your parents do. You should know more about vaping than the average person in the community. You're not going to know everything about vaping because nobody does. But you should feel like you have depth of knowledge, a degree of expertise. And when you have youth and sometimes adults that have depth of knowledge on a topic, the urge is to run out and take action because you start to see potential solutions. But before we allow our youth to take action, we make sure they have the skills to do that. And skills, we're talking about adult level skills. And can everyone see my PowerPoint? Is that up there? Yep. Okay. So we're talking about adult level skills. That's the bar we're shooting for. And because if someone isn't skilled to take the action they're going to take, then they're not going to be effective. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you're not an effective speaker, if you're not producing effective media, whatever your action is, then you're reducing your effectiveness if you are not skilled. So we look for advocacy skills, and we actively work within our program to develop presentation skills, media skills, theatrical skills, depending on what the students are going to do. And one of those skills that's really fundamental is having them be media literate, having media literacy skills. That's what I'm going to talk about today. And that's where it sort of fits into the scheme of things in the way we approach prevention in our community. So again, it's our model: knowledge, skills, action. And as far as the process of building media literacy skills, we do that in a very planned and targeted way. And when we take even middle school students, and we're going to start developing their media skills, what we want to do is teach them to deconstruct the media that they're exposed to. keeping in mind that a lot of these principles apply to the media that they might in turn create. Media is media, and they all have the same core elements to it when you take it apart. And those are, all media has a goal, something that the media is trying to accomplish. And this terminology we're using is not something we invented. This is all, basic in the media world. The idea of target audience is a term you'd hear if you study it in college. They'll talk to you about a target audience, and that's the terminology. So we make it a little simpler than a college level communications course, but the unit, the elements that they need are pretty much the same. So keeping in mind, this is not the general public we're teaching our youth advocates. So we have that regular access to them. So we tell them all media has a goal, and we'll show them examples of media that they're probably exposed to and say, okay, what is the goal of this media? Because we need the youth advocates to have a good handle on this if they're going to talk to fourth graders and fifth graders about tobacco advertising. So we say that what is the goal here? Well, and what we want to eventually get them to is, well, they want you to buy their product, which is most commercial media is geared that way. And why do they want you to buy the product? Well, of course, because they would really like to get your money. That's their goal. That overrides other goals like public health and concern for the public and that type of thing. That's their goal. So you have them understand, some media might be to get you to vote for a certain candidate or to wear your seatbelt. All media has a goal, and when they're selling an addictive product, their goal is still to get into your wallet. All media has a target audience, a primary target audience, although it might influence others. And even pretty young students, you put up something like this and say, is this who's getting targeted here? And it's because this is a pretty extreme example, but it's a pretty, start with easy stuff and get them tuned into not just looking at things and saying, I like that, I don't like that, getting them to think about who's being targeted here. And it pretty quickly they figure out this is not targeting their grandmother. And then they'll identify this as they're targeting teens here. They're targeting younger people. Is it right? And now let's look more deeply at that. Within that teen group, who are they targeting? And say, well, pretty prominent use of African Americans there. So are they looking for African American teens, and kind of have that discussion with them? Now you're deconstructing that. Who's being targeted here. It's got a game controller attached to the Heineken bottle. Does some adults play video games? Sure. But teens figure out, okay, that kind of technology is particularly attractive to attracting the attention of teens. And characters and icons and symbolism. So all of those things, what gets people's attention. We teach them that a fundamental principle of media is if you don't have their attention, then they aren't getting the message. So we help kids in a very simple but very effective way see the difference between what gets your attention and then what's the message, and what strategy are they using to change your behavior. So the strategy is another thing that we teach our students, and the strategy is how the producer of the media is getting the target audience, keep using that terminology, to change their behavior. So all media has a strategy by which they think they'll get you to vote for a certain candidate or engage in a certain positive behavior or to buy their product or whatever it is that their goal is. So the strategy is where they develop the messages that will change the behavior of the target audience to achieve their goal. And show them some extreme examples of advertising. And, so what's their message? They want you to get to buy Viceroy cigarettes. What's their strategy? Well, their strategy is to make it look healthy to smoke, which is, those are real ads from, longer time ago. So, okay, right. So they used to advertise like that. Now you might see an ad that's more like this. What's their strategy? Well, the strategy is kind of the same. It's a little sneakier to make it look healthy to smoke without actually saying the lie in this time, and just giving the appearance that it's healthy to smoke, which is advertising by associating the product with certain positive images, which is the strategies that are more typically of what they're exposed to now. So we walk the students through that process of what's the goal, what's the target audience, what's the strategy. And once they are taking apart the ad by that way, then you can, have them look at individual ads and decide, what are they doing in these ads. And we teach them that they'll first try to get your attention, and then they will send you a message, and sometimes at the same time. So they'll get your attention with associating their product with attractive people use it, that you'll be more effective in sports, that it's a part of being socially connected, having more friends, and being socially connected through alcohol, and associating with alcohol and sex go together, music and technology is a common theme as well. And we kind of very deliberately go through it. We have a series of lessons and PowerPoints that we use to kind of pull the students through this until it becomes natural to think of media that way. And so one of the things we do, we have a whole process we use, but for purposes of today, I'm just going to give you a little taste of that. One of the things we do is go through an exercise where we say, okay, common themes of advertising for alcohol, for example, are what I just showed you: electronics, sex, music, appearance, that you'll have friends. And we asked our students, like, tell me six things. Let's make a list of 6 things that are maybe not on every teen's mind, but very prominently on teens' minds. And this is the 6 things that they came up with. And they generally agree. Yep, those are things that people are thinking about, worrying about, that's on their minds. And if you have any teenagers at home, you probably say, yep, well, a lot of that makes sense. And then we will start to look at advertising in the sense of, okay, you agree that those things are predominantly on a lot of teens' minds. And then let's go back and look at how they're advertising. Wow, you see ads like all these types of ads, and say, yeah, okay, isn't that a coincidence that the predominant themes in alcohol advertising happen to match up with the things that you consider to be on teens' minds? And from there, what we'll do is we have videos that we'll use. I'll put one up there, and we'll show video and say, okay, looking at the list, give it to them on a piece of paper, but looking at your list of what's on teens' minds, which of those things do you see? And I'm gonna play this. Second, I'm going to play this video, and I'm going to kind of let you, you don't have the handout in front of you, but I'm going to let you kind of, if this will let me, there you go. I'm going to let you decide for yourself, how you would answer those things. So I'm going to play a,
Okay, Buckman, you said you had a fresh new approach for this year.
Stand by. I have a little technical issue here. Get the right video up. So this is part of a larger video. So I got to find my place again here that we use to teach parents and adults in the community about media literacy and the influences on their so we'll take a we'll take a video like this and say, okay, how many of the 6 things on teens' minds can you find in this one 30-second video? So I'll ask you all afterwards, you know, what did you see? What would you hope that a group of parents would identify as sort of things that would get the attention of their teens?
I eat breakfast. I wash up. I blow dry my hair. I text my friends. I do gymnastics. I take a power nap. I make friends. I drink Malibu because summer.
So what'd you see? What would you want them to identify? Like a lot of youthful media, it's a lot of quick flashing scenes, but the ones that register. Can you give me an example of something that you saw that would match up with a list of 6 things on teens' minds?
Well, even though they didn't necessarily show, they said texting. I mean, they put technology in there just by word alone.
Yep, they did.
Friends.
Yeah, pretty much hit all of them. Maybe sports, where they were playing stuff. So it's pretty much everything.
Yeah, and you know, if you exactly, so you what we'll do with the students, or if we're teaching, you know, if the students are then teaching parents or other youth advocates, they'll go back through it and say, you know, look for anything that you missed. And
I eat breakfast. I wash up.
they always find a reason to have a young lady in a very skimpy bathing suit. That's a standard fare for alcohol advertising. So, you know, appearance or sex appeal.
I blow dry my hair.
She's blow drying her hair, so that, you know, that sort of attention to appearance and issues of appearance.
I text my friends.
Specifically mentioning texting friends. I do gymnastics. It's almost like they had our list and said, let's make sure we don't miss any of them. So you're exactly right. They're basically all there.
Well, and what's interesting too about that ad is it's portraying the idea of these are just normal things that everybody does. So if you are normal, you blow dry your hair, you text your friends, you wash up, you know, like all of these things, you know, I eat breakfast, like they're all like normal things. And then it ends with, I drink Malibu. So it's kind of like, to be normal, to be like everybody else, you would just do these things too.
Well, and that's absolutely part of the strategy is to normalize the use of the product, whether that's vaping or alcohol, or, you know, in states where marijuana is legal, you're seeing the same kinds of things happening. So normalizing the activity, which is very important if you sell a product that has millions of people addicted to it across the country. If your product is associated with violence, with mental health problems, with you know, a variety of problems for teens that use it, then, you know, normalizing it, making it seem no big deal is really important. So once you have developed those skills in the youth, then the next step is, well, what can they do with it? What kind of action? And I'm just going to close out here with showing you some examples of the action. So I already showed you one, is that because we do this media literacy changing, the student that was at the Hilltop Fun Center didn't go, oh, there's a Budweiser car. He went, oh my God, there's a Budweiser car there. He reacted to it because he was now sensitized to those issues. He looked at it differently, which is really what you hope to have with this kind of education. And the other kinds of, so that's one type of action you might get out of students that develop that kind of sense. Another one is media. So I'm going to play a radio spot here. This is a quick 30-second spot, and you'll see that knowledge of what the advertiser is doing come out in the radio spot. So listen to this radio ad that they produced.
Okay, Buckman, you said you had a fresh new approach for this year's Fun and Wiser beer holiday ad. Let's see it.
You'll love it, boss. Roll the ad.
From here in the snowy hills of Fuddyville, the makers of Fun and Wiser beer want to bring you this special holiday message.
Alcohol is strongly connected to family problems and domestic violence.
And alcohol, which chemically is an addictive depressant, can easily make things worse for someone dealing with depression around the holidays.
For these and many other good reasons, we recommend that you be very cautious with alcohol during the holidays.
In fact, sometimes you may even be able to have fun with the kids or friends without drinking.
Buckman, drink less? Fun without drinking? You are an idiot. We've spent millions convincing America that having fun and drinking are the same thing.
But boss, we make drinking look so harmless, especially to the kids.
Created and presented by Dover Youth to Youth, because it's our job to tell you what the alcohol industry won't.
Okay, Buckman.
So that is, example of using it media, and our students do a lot of media work that kind of tries to make the public more aware of some of those techniques, help the public be perhaps more media literate. We also do a variety of presentations. So actually you can see in that left picture that they're actually using one of the ads I showed you earlier. That's in front of 4th and 5th graders that they're talking about tobacco advertising. And so you have a message coming from our students to somewhat younger students telling them, don't fall for this. Look, this is what they're trying to do. And it's up to us not to fall for that. So we do a lot of that kind of thing also with alcohol at the middle school level, where they have a presentation where they specifically go through those 6 things and correlate the consequences of use of alcohol against the way it's advertised. So, and they make it look like, associating the product with athletics and race car driving and that sort of thing for a product that causes loss of balance, loss of coordination, and so forth. And emphasizing the actual consequences of alcohol use against the way it's advertising and sort of kind of highlighting for the students that they're not telling you the whole story. Such as how they sexualize the advertising, but they never talk in their ads or caution kids in their ads about the risk of date rape, for example. And then other community projects and ideas. So, a local store, local gift shop that was selling this magnet. The students approached them and asked them that maybe this wasn't an appropriate thing to be selling in their store because of the message about marijuana in it. The gift shop, which was attached to a major local restaurant and tourist attraction, pulled them completely out. And a great example of media literacy is what we called our NATTY project. So NATTY being natural light, the name that Anheuser-Busch gives to natural light is NATTY. Students in a grocery store and sees that advertisement and it says study, sleep, natty, repeat. Again, it is, our students are looking at this, and they took pictures of it and came back, we talked about it, and they're looking at this and going, study. Who studies? Well, middle school, we study when we're in middle school, we study when we're in high school. College students study, most of them aren't 21 yet. So who is the target audience? And that term comes back, target audience. Who are they speaking to here? So there's adults out there that study, but predominantly, so they wrote a letter to Anheuser-Busch and got no response, of course, because they just were a bunch of kids that got ignored. So they released their letter and the photographs that they took to the newspaper and got a lot of attention here in New Hampshire and on regionally on the Boston radio TV stations picked up the story. So we got a lot of a message out there to the public about this, even though Anheuser-Busch didn't seem to respond or care to what the students had to say. So a great example, and it can fold into longer term campaigns. We had a Tell the Truth campaign. The students kicked it off with a big rally and signs and large visuals and handing out palm cards to pedestrians that look like that, and held a press conference and so forth. And so doing a year-long campaign of trying to raise awareness about those kinds of things. And we created a series of videos. I won't show you any of them, but they're available on our YouTube channel. Dover Y2Y is a YouTube channel. If you look for the Boss Wants More Money video, it's about 6 minutes long. It's a great video that really is all about media literacy and with a funny little aggressive edge to it. I'm sure the alcohol industry would not appreciate it if they saw it. And that's basically kind of what I wanted to take the time to expose you to. Our group works a lot with local coalitions, and the Dover Coalition for Youth considers us, part of the coalition. And I'm skipping through these frames to close things out here, but if anyone has a Drug-Free Communities Coalition and they wanted to talk about the way we use the youth to support our DFC goals and activities and so forth, I'd be more than happy to talk to anyone in your group or in your state about that. We could have done our entire match just on things that the youth were doing, and including their volunteer time. So having a large group of youth that are very active and busy, you get to use all of those things towards your match. And your match can be upwards of $125,000 a year. So that's a valuable piece for anyone that's looking to go for a Drug-Free Communities grant. And if I can be any kind of a resource to any of you there in Missouri, d.mitchell@dover.nh.gov. We're still under the umbrella of the police department, which is a little unusual, but it works for us. A group like ours is more often under the umbrella of a hospital or Boys and Girls Club or that type of thing. But it's been, a great partnership with the police department, and glad to talk to the law enforcement people about how we're set up as well. We have a website, doverY2Y.org, has a lot of resources on it for engaging or empowering youth, YouTube channel, and glad to share our resources and training. We have a toolkit that's used around the country. Don't have a very big footprint in Missouri, actually, but in some states, the state has adopted our model and contracted with us to coordinate youth empowerment, in their region or in their state. And the toolkit is the center part of that. So if anyone was interested in empowering their youth, this might be something that would be very useful to you. It's a series of modules, and it provides the resources and mechanisms where you would train your students on public speaking, on media development, media literacy, pop culture influences on alcohol use, has a variety of standalone modules where each module is a specific skill that you'd use or each module is an activity that you might engage with your youth, and comes with a flash drive that has 60 gigabyte of replication materials. So all the PowerPoints, lesson plans, exercises, scripts to the radio PSAs, MP3s, the radio PSAs, and so forth. So it's a great resource. We sell it. It's expensive, so you wouldn't buy it, and you wouldn't want to get it unless it's something that you really, we're really serious about getting into and engaging the youth this way. But if you were, it would be a very useful thing. It's off our website. It's $700. With the states we work with the state contracts with us, and they're going to buy them in bulk. Then, so if you were going to work together in Missouri, the price would drop significantly to the state of Washington, for example, pays $500 for a toolkit, and they have a couple hundred of them that they've distributed around the state. And we work very closely with them and with Kentucky, North Carolina, West Virginia, Georgia, a lot of states up here in the Northeast as well. So you don't want to turn it into a sales job. I did want to make sure you understood that that resource is out there and available to you, and just reach out to us if if there's ever anything we can do. You don't have to get help from us. You don't have to buy the toolkit. We're a nonprofit. We're not quite that mercenary. Glad to help you out any time. And I'll stay connected with Steve, and he'll also be a good conduit. And that's what I got.
Thank you, Dana.
Pleasure to meet all of you. Any questions or anything?
That was wonderful. So yeah, let's open it up to any questions that the group might have. Now's not the time to be shy.
So when you started this in your school, you started at the middle school, the high school level? Where did you guys start at?
We started at the middle school. We started off with 10 girls and 1 boy. They were all 6th graders. And so we had that 11 kids. And, I really had no idea what I was doing. There wasn't any model to follow. And there were, schools had groups that were doing drug prevention, but it was not anything that was as structured as we are now. So I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of wrong turns, but somewhere around year 5, I started to get the idea of what would, resonate with the students. What were they looking for to make it something that they would seek out? And then once we got that traction, and I figured out what they want is to feel like they're having growth, and the value of doing those skills is not only are they more effective, but they take it more seriously. They feel like, oh, I'm testifying to the New Hampshire State Senate. I'm doing a press conference, and what I said turned up in the newspaper the next day. So that makes it seem like, okay, this is a real deal. And it's that process of really meaningfully, when that happens, they feel meaningfully engaged. They feel meaningfully, a part of things as equal partners in the adult world. And that's when you start to achieve empowerment.
So do you use any particular kids, media, your speech and debate, your government kids are involved in the state legislature type stuff? Anyone particular? Or
so I say that again. I missed that.
So did you target any specific, any kids, maybe certain classes, your speech and debate kids, your kids are a little more, we have what's called youth state here. Those type of kids are really kind of push into the legislative stuff.
Yeah, I didn't target us any specific group. We made it, we just generally, I did ask, like guidance counselors, we're looking for the kind of kid that wants to change the world. And that's what you're looking for. You'll get some athletes, you'll get some kids that are in the band, you'll get some kids that aren't in anything. We've always had a number of kids that, not necessarily that they're struggling with substance misuse, but we've always had a number of kids that is severe substance misuse in the home. And we became a refuge from that, or some sort of alternative stabilizing reality. And, and I, being part of the police department, I was more aware of that. We had, a girl in our program, and we probably arrested her mother for being drunken and disorderly and out of control 3 times while she was in the program over 5 years. So I was really keenly aware of this kid who's, only child and no dad in the house, and her mom's getting arrested. And, later in high school, she actually spent a couple of nights in my daughter's room because she had nowhere to go and mom was locked up. So that's an extreme example. But we always had those kids, so the mom or dad's in recovery, or just simply they've seen a very realistic, very ugly side of substance misuse and alcohol misuse. So those people are among the most committed people we've ever had. But there really isn't a type. Other than they're all, the only similarity is they tend to be this type that I want to get involved in the community. I want to change things. And if you have that type of student that really enjoys playing that role, they'll come from all different walks of life.
That sounds good.
I did ask, guidance counselors, who would be good for this group? Who do you know that's that type of kid that would get into doing this kind of thing and learning these kinds of skills, and talk to teachers. I know I was a DARE officer for years, and although DARE gets a sort of a black eye in a lot of places, it was a really good conduit for us to get information about this group. We were doing DARE in the 5th grade, and using that as a means of recruiting students into the youth program, which starts in the 6th grade. So that was, we played that card for all it was worth, and that was, really helpful.
Yeah, that's good. We've done stuff in the past with using kids about do alcohol buys, and I was skeptical when we did it at first, but they loved it, and we have the lines of kids wanting to do it. So I think those kids are out there that really want to change stuff.
They're in every community. There's nothing different in the water in our city. We're a city of 30,000 people. So, and those kids are everywhere. It's just a matter of whether the adult world can get to the point where they create the opportunity for them to participate in it. Much like it's a lot like running a youth sports league, where we have, stratification of ages and skill development that's planned. And, we planned this program the way we would if we were starting a basketball program, a youth basketball program in the community, where we sort of developed the skills at different ages and kind of had a very planned and programmed strategic approach to it. And the coaching that goes on to develop the skills, these advocacy skills, is really very much like the process of developing any skill. Whether it's fielding a ground ball or shooting a jump shot, it's skill. Teaching skills is teaching skills, and there's a process for doing that, and then giving them the opportunity to use those skills.
That's always nice.
Okay.
Another question?
Yeah.
Anybody else got another question? All right.
Hey, real quick, Steve, Dana, I'm going to hit you up via email. You just volunteered yourself earlier in your speech to speak to coalition, so be prepared for that.
Yeah. I take down the email, and we love to help you out there. And we are there's a lot of states we're very active in. That's part of what we do, is helping doing these things in our own community, but we also have a network of coalitions that we work with in New England and also around the country. Even coalitions that aren't connected to a statewide program. We have, stay in touch with them. I should say that we do 4 or 5 free webinars every year, and we have a constant contact email list. And those, so if you take my email down and you email me and say, please put me on your constant contact email list, it goes out. We don't barrage you. It goes out about quarterly, letting you know about training opportunities and the webinars and things like that. You don't have to. A lot of people that have the toolkit will use those webinars that way, but it doesn't. You don't. They would be valuable. This one you saw, Steve, was an example of one of those webinars. So if you want to be on our list and be able to access those, there's no charge for them. And we take a particular topic and try to delve into that. They all relate to youth empowerment and developing youth resources in your community.
So by way of more introduction, Dana, Philip is the DFC coordinator in Neosho, Missouri, and he's also law enforcement. And then Philip, I thought I'd let you know, the Alliance has Dover's toolkit. I talked to Jen about it yesterday, and you might want to take a look at that a little closer, and that might be something that you could tap into with her, or maybe you might want to look at getting one for Neosho through the DFC if you might want to use that toolkit for your efforts down there. But give you a chance to see what it looks like if you want to connect with Jen. She said she was going to locate it, because since Kevin's left up there, they haven't really done much with it. So it might be something.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me know. I'll get with her on that.
Yeah, and did you confirm that they found that, Steve?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. She was going to go. I talked to her yesterday. We did a Zoom yesterday, and she said she was going to go. She was at home. When she's in the office, she was going to scavenger it up, and I told her that it's probably been updated, and if she reached out to you, she could probably get connected. So.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So anyone that does have the toolkit, it's if they haven't gotten the updates for a couple of years, they want to get the flash drive updated and any new modules added. But we do that. Anyone that has the toolkit, we will upgrade or recondition them for several years after the purchase.
Well, thanks for being here today, Dana. I like I've just said before, I learned a lot from your other presentations, and it's always a delight to see the kids. I mean, you guys do a great job, and you've educated them well. They present well. They know their cues. It went off real seamless when I watched the last webinar. So, and for a bunch of young kids, they really work together well. So, I can tell that you've mentored them to understand the material and really present, which is really, if anything, a valuable asset to possess. So appreciate you sharing that with us.
Well, thanks. It was great to be here. Hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas here in next week. And we'll be here if we can help you in any way.
Well, before we get away, for those that are in the audience, if you're interested, this is my last Big Mama's gift certificate for coffee at the local Big Mama's. Dana, if you want to weigh in on it, I'd be happy to send it to you in the mail. Pick a number between 1 and 100, and the closest number gets the best tasting coffee in America. So, if not America, at least in Springfield, Missouri. I'm kind of partial to it. Good, Scott. Scott, got to give you special directions.
I won last time. I'm still waiting for it mail. Hey, I will say that as someone who finds himself ear deep in a pandemic now in public health, it's refreshing to have these prevention perks and not have anybody mention the word pandemic or COVID for an hour. It really is good for my mental health. Almost as good as seeing Jay Jastel. Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, you don't come out anymore.
You know, I am with public health now in Webster County. So this is my new hangout. You need to come up here, man. We'll put you to work.
All right.
Jay's not doing anything anyway, Scott.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if everybody's got a submission here, I want to introduce everybody to quite possibly the luckiest person I know, because every time Brad Brummel puts his 2 cents in, he's the winner. I think this is the third time that he picked 77, and my number was the last 2 digits of Dana's phone number. I picked 73. So congratulations, Brad. You're going back to Big Mama's again.
Brad needs more caffeine in his life.
I'll take it. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, he's going to need an intervention by the time this is over.
I understand that Brad's going to be moving into Carol's position. Is that true?
I have not heard that, Scott.